Let us welcome to the program Dr. Joseph Akinlaja. He is a former member of Nigeria's House of Representatives and a former Labour leader as Deputy President of the Nigeria Labour Congress. Thank you so much for coming, Dr. Akinlaja.
Thank you. And
welcome.
Thank you for
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to
you. Yes. I'm sure you were listening very attentively to what Professor Ken Ife was talking about.
Yes.
What do you think? He painted a very rosy picture, just like the president tried to do his New Year message when he said, when Nigeria recorded on the average a 4% GDP growth rate for 2025, recorded trade surpluses and exchange rate stability. Inflation declined to as low as below 15%, and the stock exchange posted about 48.12% gain for that period. And of course, our foreign reserve stood at $45.4 billion.
Yes, Prof. Kenny have painted what the policy of government is, hope. We try to give hope to Nigerians that after us, everything is not lost. But then, I'm happy the way he landed. That's what about unemployment? What about hunger in the streets? Has it reduced? All this that they have said. I realized that we should have beaten the bullet much, much earlier than 20 years ago. Maybe if the hard policy of now had been taken 20 years before now, maybe our situation would have been better. But now that we are having to operate our patients, the lung, the liver, and the heart at the same time, we only pray that the pain will not kill
all the essential organs have been operated on.
At the same time, we pray that the patient will not die. That is the hope that is trying to give to us. But I know that it is true the GDP has improved, but the reflection on inflation is not as rosy as Prof has painted. We still have a systemic problem. Dangote have tried to reduce the price of oil, for example, but it has not reflected by the transporters to the people. So it's a systemic thing. What he reduced is almost 27%, and the reflection on the commuters is not there. So that's a systemic thing. And two, it is true, I was the Deputy President of Nigeria Labour Congress. We foresaw these things, in time past, and we made a proposal of what to do, and that was not done even up to now. How can we have, for example, 4 refineries, and at a point we were importing 95% of the product, especially PMS, that we use in Nigeria? It's inexplicable. But has the situation improved even 2 years after? We always have television shows by visiting the place. I was once chairman House Committee on Downstream, and we will go around the whole 4 refineries, and we will be told that in 3 months' time it will work. And when it does not work, what does the government do to those who make those promises? And what do we do to make it work? We workers were there, idling away. At the end of the month, we must earn our salary. So I think that government is not about the president alone. It's about everybody in the MDAs and the governors, that is of national government. And so the situation in summary is not as rosy as it is. The reflection is not there, and the street.
Dr. Abdul, you looked agitated when Professor was talking, and the question that is playing on everybody's mind is how well the reforms and these huge gains that the president spoke about in his New Year address or his New Year message have impacted the lives of the ordinary people, just like what Dr. Akinlaja has just talked about. How well?
Yeah, I think Comrades has actually put this on the table, how well, and I think Prof also, while landing, said, despite all this, how is this reflecting on the lives of the people? What I had wanted to ask actually was that if Prof, for instance, can put aside the economic orthodoxy and look at economics and the economy from the perspective of the people, meaning instead of looking at the GDP, can we look at the Human Development Index? And that's the conversations, because increasingly the parameters for measuring the performance of government or economy generally has been largely shaped by the neoliberal thinking as defined largely by IMF and the World Bank and basic parameters of GDP. And most often, there is a strong disconnect between these parameters and the realities of the people. And so what you are checking is the performance of the market, and which in many cases in our economies lives in abstraction with the realities of the people. And this is not peculiar to this government, all across. We've seen it even in our recent history in this country. Today, we are talking about GDP growth of 4%. We've had before between 11 to 9% GDP growth in this country. In our recent past, very recent, under Obasanjo, we had that. 11%, coming down to 9%, later 7%. Massive GDP growth. But what did we have? Unemployment was increasing, while that was going on. Poverty was deepening, while that was going on. Inequality was also increasing, while that was going on. And then the narrative changed. The growth is not inclusive. And now, how do we make growth inclusive? And that raises a fundamental philosophical questions around measurement of economics. Then what then? If it's not inclusive, what then are you measuring? And so you will see all these basic parameters, all the beautiful quoting being told, and the positivity and the checklist. What is a checklist provided by people, global framework that they're actually using to help in comparison in international comparators that are defined. And basically, you have to create a certain level of uniformity in those measurement parameters. But the reality is that there is no uniformity in the global structure. So part of the world is at advantage, other parts of the world are at disadvantage. The structure of the global economic system favors one part of the world, it disfavors the other part of the world, and therefore such parameters that we have defined, that we have always been using to measure inflation rate, unemployment and all that, and each time we do, and when we question it, people can't really understand why you are questioning when these things are showing positive. But you will question because it's not reflecting on our livelihood, on our reality. Look, check unemployment. We can take all the figures, but when you look at what we use in measuring unemployment, you can see the deficiency. Check, for instance, Nigerians, if you labor survey, take our labor survey, 93% of Nigerians are actually in the informal space. Only about 7% of Nigerians are employed in the formal space. And now relate that to the tax reform and actually look at what is the reform going to bring out. In fact, we had the chairman of the reform correctly telling us the banking population that look, a significant proportion of Nigerians have less than 500,000 in their bank account.
Yes, that's true.
And he was saying that to actually show that the poor will not be overtaxed. Then who then is actually going to be taxed, and what is going to come out of it in the first place? Think about stability. The concept of stability in economics is basically either you are measuring it on year or you are doing it on month basis. And what we are seeing is that actually month-on-month basis It does not tell us that what happened from the root. But it tells us the improvement that you have had from this stage to this stage. It does not go to when the rain started beating you. No, it doesn't go to when the rain started beating you. It goes, but when you begin to start asking yourself, when did the rain start? Not when did the rain start ceasing? And so there is a whole dimension, and government generally, and this is not about Nigeria, generally governments are aware of these deficiencies of their measurement parameters, but we pick them based on convenience, because that, as a government, you want to send a message of, like he said, message of hope, message of positivity. And that is why even in the United States, statistics will tell you that this is what is happening about the GDP, and the president will say it is no, this is my own. And so for me, we need to be very careful about here. I want to appreciate that, yes, reforms are important, and I appreciate the courage of the government of the day in taking some of these hard decisions. But again, it also takes courage to recognize as well that those hard decisions have also had some impact on the lives of the people. And because once you begin to say it is okay, it sounds like you are insulting the people who are actually suffering.
All right. Yes.
You know, the beautiful reform has to be implemented by human beings. Why do we have unemployment, for example? Unemployment is because there's no production. How can production be if energy, if we do not face energy, especially electricity? When we came out of the university, we had 3-4 different jobs. We have to offers, yes.
And then you had to make a choice.
We have to make a choice.
Yes.
Maybe go to church and pray. Which one will be better? Those of us who are religious. Why is it like that? There's an energy. We had Bata, we have Lever Brothers, we had Dunlop, we have Michelin, we have all those people. Why did they go away? Why did our currency collapse? No production. People came out of school, university, they read criminology, 5 years, no job. They now employ the skill in the negative parameter. You now see kidnapping, you now see. And it does not mean that our forefathers or our founding father of Nigeria, modern Nigeria, did not see it. They saw it coming. Obafemi Awolowo said, when the poor does not see something to eat, they will rise and defend themselves. So, but because those in a position of authority are protected, they have means of protecting themselves, they now start kidnapping, a lot of social vices now came up. So, like he said, this reform, how can it have positive impact on us? We have to go to this energy. It is the father of all industry. If it's a shame that today we are still talking less than 6,000 megawatts of electricity. So how many companies will this be able to provide in the whole Nigeria? So, and we give ourselves a message of hope, every day. Hope is good because that's what makes the world, to thrive. But then, to sustain this, we must think about production, electricity as the father of industry, so that our children that are coming out of the university will have jobs instead of thinking of going to where we are rejected now.
So. All right, Prof, let's bring you in at this point in time. Beyond all these beautiful figures that we have talked about, the critical question that has been asked and has been put forward is, how do we make growth inclusive? For instance, how do we build an economy that works for the ordinary Nigerian? We are in 2026. We have left 2025 behind, as it were. So how do we go about building an economy that works for every Nigerian, that is inclusive in 2026?
You see, I quite like the contribution of my colleagues sitting with you there, because they're all reinforcing the inevitability of addressing the crucial constraints. And the crucial constraints are this. In fact, you can actually see some, when you look at some of the figures, all the progress that we are making in the area of finance, stability, and all that, you will still see some sign. For example, why is it that our FDI has vaporized away? The FDI investment is not coming, because that is the one that takes a longer-term view of your economy. That's the one that comes to stay. And that's running away because of insecurity. That's running away because the structural factors are compromised.
The president says that our FDI rose to $720 million in 2025.
FDI used to be 20 billion. You're going to look about 10 years ago, 2014. I mean, this is just a drop. What you just mentioned is a drop.
It's a drop. No, how can the economy of Nigerian size be actually having that?
Yeah. So that is what gives you an idea of because but the thing is this: the politician will tell you the things that they think are positive sound bites, but they are not going to tell you that look. The UNDP Human Development Index says that our average life expectancy, our own is 0.47%, life expectancy is 48. It will tell you those, because those ones are the Achilles heel in the whole. Yes, there are many things. The details are there. 139 million people are in experiencing multidimensional poverty. Very cogent figure, but they will not go to talk about those.
They're not going to talk about it.
About the ones that are positive. Now, let me tell you where we are. Let me tell you.
The devil is in the details.
Absolutely. So what happens here is this. If you look at the structure of your economy, you're going to get some headlines. For one, why is it that you have an import-dependent economy? Because you can still have, if you look at Japan doesn't have raw materials. It doesn't have all the solid minerals and all that, but their investment in human capacity is what made them the third biggest economy in the world. They don't need any. Look at some of the economy, they don't have anything. So why is it that our economy continues to be import dependent? The reason is this: when you export raw material, you are exporting jobs and you are importing poverty.
Yes.
That is exactly what that says. And then look at this value chain. If you are focusing on raw material and you're exporting them, you are earning only about 10 to 15% of the value of that value chain. Then go to the extreme end, you will come to participate by buying and consuming the things that have been processed. You are going to get 15% and you're going to spend 100%. So in between the two, the people who are adding value are the people who are taking the jobs. And what you are doing is that you are borrowing money to pay for finished goods at 100%. So you will never have a chance to develop your economy. You can have all these figures flashing, but they will not good food on your table. Those high GDP won't good food on the table. What you should consider, when they tell you that, oh, GDP is very, very high, ask them, what is the debt service to GDP? Then everybody will pause.
Exactly.
They will pause. Because they can't tell you that, oh, it used to be 98%. Now it's down to 60%. They won't tell you that. Because that is where the crux is. Why are you spending more money than you are earning in servicing debt? You are servicing that debt because that debt is incurred in the process of consumption. That's why you have to remove the subsidy. But the people that are telling you all those, the Europe and the America, they subsidize primary production. They don't subsidize consumption.
They do.
Because when you subsidize production, you create the jobs.
Jobs.
You have control, you have economic sovereignty. But when you are subsidizing consumption, you've lost complete control of your economy. And people will continue to be poor, poverty will continue to go down. So that is it. But then let's get to the solutions. Okay. The solutions are one, you have to have export-led growth strategy. Because when you have an export-led growth strategy that is focusing on removing this import dependence and then asserting yourself and then beginning to substitute those imports and then also do backward integration. So those two items, but it must be led by an export-led strategy. If you just pursue them together, pursue import substitution and without an aggressive export-led strategy, you will not remove people from poverty. China did this and removed 400 million from poverty. South Korea, Indonesia, and Malaysia, they removed 200 million out of poverty because that strategy is driven by export. Okay, can you imagine when I'm getting only 20,000 from my Gary from selling it 60,000? The only way I could respond is to increase the value chain. Because if I invest more on the value chain to produce starch and then produce sorbitol and then produce for something I can export, then I can absorb the shortfall of that 40,000 from my Gary. That is where value addition comes in. So we have to do value addition on the back of an export-led strategy so that people will get out of poverty, it will transmit down, so that is the link. If somebody tells you just go and produce more, if you produce it for domestic consumption only, you're not going to earn the currency to stabilize your economy. If you don't do it for targeting export, because when you target export, okay, for example, now there's a law sitting and waiting for the president to sign for over 6 months, and that is mandatory 30% value addition for any of our raw material before export. Both houses have passed it, Senate and House of Reps, and I keep saying to the president, please sign this into law, so that those who are drilling gas, drilling oil crude, will know that that will stop sooner than later. Those who are doing, look at all the shea butter and all the agricultural products, they know that if you don't have 30% value, you will not get exported. And the investors that want to come in can only come in because they know you have a law stopping the export of 30% or less. They can now use their machinery to process. Because this is reality in the industry. The industry is that I have people that Chinese that have come here and they put on factories to do flour there, and they cannot get the raw material because we are still drying and sending this abroad. So that is the thing. So we have to be conscious and deliberate in ensuring that we now have to have strategy of how we are going to industrialize, but then on the back of an export-led strategy, so that both of them will work together. See how Dangote is delivering that structural change in the oil and gas. What would we have before? Over the last 15 years, they'll say, look away, no oil. They've been telling us to get out of non-oil. When people who are there entrench their position, killed all the refineries, and then keep on cozy relationship, bringing in, they can never tell you how many fuel we are consuming. They won't tell you. So all the shenanigans going on there is to make you look away. But Dangote has shown that you can go back here and create wealth in the country. Now look at what will happen to the market industry. Next year, this year, we have entered, the valuation is going to go to $200 billion. Then he's going to have $100 billion turnover. Then government will be earning about $6.4 billion on those two items, fertilizer and polypropylene, and then not to talk of another double the capacity. So can you imagine what is going to happen to this industry in less than 2 years when $50 billion is coming in Ondo, and then Bua is doing it's going to be transformational. But just the oil and gas. Can you do this in mining? Can you do this in agriculture? We have low, very high yield now, but why are you processing it? Where are you processing? For you to translate that to wealth and carry the people out of poverty. And then on the other hand, Nigeria has 42 million MSMEs. Africa as a whole have 90 million MSMEs. Please explain to me why Nigerian population is 15% of Africa, is the GDP is 15% of Africa, but our entrepreneurship is 48%. But why are you not funding that group? Why are you not making sure that those informal traders can transit? Why are you not putting policy and resource to ensure that those entrepreneurism that is a latent competitive advantage for Nigeria actually gets a look in the whole scheme? So that, we don't go far to find out where the problem lies. And our colleague has said that power is the culprit. Of course, you know that. Mm-hmm. Nigeria is 4 times the population of South Africa, mm-hmm. and we are glorifying 5,000 megawatts when they have 58,000 megawatts.
Johannesburg alone has more than 10,000.
Yes, so they have 40 times more power per capita than Nigeria. Yeah. So how can you have industrialization? You can't have industrialization if you don't have power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the question is, which is what I'm going to pose to the two of you, is why is Nigeria not learning from the best of around the world? Why is it that we tend to learn the very where bad things from other places and import them into Nigeria, and leave out those good examples of what Prof has talked about, China, Indonesia, what have you, and even the European countries. We are not doing all of that. What kind of governance truly delivers?
Well, it is bad leadership, I would say. Or let me say leadership. The deficiency of leadership. In my own adult life, I have discovered that when the fish want to get spoiled, it starts from the head. Our women know it. When they go to the market in the evening, once they open the gill and it's green, they close it. The body is still fresh. So it's leadership. It's a leadership challenge. Sir, 1958, before our independence, the economy of Nigeria was stronger than that of China. It is Chinese that transformed the place, but not Chinese masses. It's Chinese leadership. So our leader, when you have confidence in your leader, they will follow you. When they have trust in the leader, they will follow the leader. But if the leaders say we should tighten our belt and they're losing their own, other people will be sabotaging the reform, that the good reform. There has always been good reform policies in Nigeria. Everything profs have been said in the past. But have we taken those things, deficiencies we talked about, as a challenge and provide solution? So it is about leadership. Look, if a leader will say there should be solar power installed in Aso Rock, what do you think about policy on electricity? In the energy industry, or let me say NEPA of the old, they put solar in their generator in their head office. So it's leadership. So if we are going to succeed with this policy that have been made, whether on tax or on export, the leaders from the president to the cabinet must believe in that and be prepared to make the necessary sacrifice to implement it. The followers, the ordinary people, will follow. But if they provide alternative solutions to their own living, and for that reason, abandon implementation of the policy, we will continue to be where we are today. That is my own.
So if they stay in darkness, for instance,
yes,
for certain hours of the day,
like ourselves,
or for a number of days in a week,
we'll be
like the ordinary people are doing now, they'll find a solution.
They'll find a solution, because they should know that those who are selling generators will never pray that public electricity should work. So they should be determined to face those people. If you are fighting corruption, corruption fights back. So a lot of sabotage will be there, but the leaders will not allow the sabotage to succeed. That's so my own.
What
my
kind
sense
of governance or leadership truly delivers? How can leadership at every level be judged by the lives it improves?
Actually, politics and economy are mutually reinforcing. The character, and that's what I was trying to say, the character of leadership can actually shape the direction of the economy.
Yeah.
And sometimes the nature of the economy determines the kind of characters that you have as your leaders. And let me give you a very small example. I have a brief stint in Rwanda after the genocide. And Kagame's leadership was at the start. Everything was on its knees. Everything was on its knees. Electricity, everything. And you can't just wake up and have a generator in your house. So when you have a gen, it is expected that you will build it into the grid. That budding grid that they were actually having at that time. As a Nigerian, it was quite concerning that why can't people have
generator.
Their own generator.
Yes.
So you can't just get this past my neighbor and put here and disturb people. No, no, no. If you have the one we call mechanical size of those things, you have to attach it to the grid. You are paid.
Yes, yes.
You will be centrally paid for that.
Yeah.
But the idea around it is that you should have something that is shared.
Shared.
Not something that is owned by you. Exclusively for you.
Yes.
But something that is shared. And today, you go to Rwanda. Water, electricity, stable. All those generators.
I can attest to that.
That was the history. I was there when this started. And this was, I'm not a fan of Kagame of today. I have my this thing around him. But it tells a message that leadership is very important.
It's very important.
How you are able to get the leaders to build a collectivity. And that's what the Chinese did. People will call you name. They will call it communist. They will call it whatever they actually want to do. But leadership is key. And that's where I significantly differ from this Obama's mantra around it's not strong leaders or strong institutions. And I say we need both. You need both. It's not either or. Because institutions don't make themselves.
It's leaders that make it.
People make institutions. Leaders make institutions.
And they make it work.
And they make institutions work. And leaders can undermine institutions.
Oh, yes.
So it is both that you need. Because institutions don't make themselves. So for me, I think that this is what we need. We need to recognize that leadership is important, but not the leadership that we run away from the people, even when it is doing good. Because what we have as leaders, and people say, oh, the courage to do the... No. When you are doing it without the people, it becomes a punishment. But when you do it with the people, and that is where education is important. What we have failed in this country over the years is that the foundation of nation building, which is education, have collapsed. Forget about how many percentage of people pass WAEC or NECO, or how many universities you have. It is not about the physical structure. It is about the doctrine. What is driving? What is the essence? What are you teaching?
What is being taught? It's
what
very
is being
critical.
taught in school.
Yes.
It is not the certification.
Many people come out with so many degrees
it's
now
not the
that are not educated.
It's the doctrinal dimension of it. That is where it is built. Education is not meant only for skills and certification. It is where you are oriented and reoriented. For good
education
or for
builds
bad.
the mind.
It builds the mind. And that is why in many countries, education is important. You remove education in China from the Chinese doctrine, you have a problem. You remove education in Vietnam from it, you have a problem. You remove education in Europe, you have a problem. Even in America, education, the way you think, the way you see the world is shaped by education. And that is what ours have become. Anything goes. You come to this country, you have Chinese curriculum, you have Indian curriculum school, you have American curriculum school, you have British curriculum school. That's all you have.
All right, very quickly, Dr. Akinlaja, what are the possibilities that you see for 2026?
For 2026, I see possibilities of hope, but our leaders must drive the process. Their behavior must inspire the citizens to trust them, to be able to implement whatever policy that will be good for them and for the masses. Okay. For now, there is disconnect in terms of trust, and that is why insecurity is there. So insecurity has to be tackled in 2026 with blind rage so that people can farm.
And of course, trust is the foundation of good governance. All right, Professor Ken Ife, your thoughts very quickly. What do you see as the prospects and possibilities for 2026?
There is hope. And I align with the submissions of my two colleagues with you there, that governance is everything. You know, governance of natural resources, governance over human capital development, and governance over infrastructure. Then we also have to obey that is totally being ignored. And you saw the hula balloon on fiscal planning and budget nonsense. You've seen what happened there, where competence is in question, and integrity is also in question. So how do you tackle it then if you don't want to sort that side out? And then anyway, I think the future is bright for the country, but we need to do more work. We need to do more work on making sure that we deal with the inequalities and the lack of inclusiveness, both from the planning perspective and then the implementation and monitoring of it. I haven't seen the monitoring that they've been talking about, because ministers are getting away with murder. And I haven't seen the delivery that you will require in an area like planning. There's no economic planning for 2-3 years, but there's a ministry that should be doing that. I haven't seen it. And then the remaining thing there is, there is hope, but there's more work to be done for us to say as you would.
All right, thank you so much, Prof. Dr. Abdul, in one sentence, what are the prospects and possibilities of 2026?
I think I agree with my colleagues. Nigerians, as the prospect for this country is massive. You can have an economy the size of this country, the quality of the people we have here, and say things are not. I think the leadership should begin to learn from the experiences of the last 2 years. Reorganize. It's a political year, and it's going to be a lot of political contest. But let's face the reality that this country must exist for us to actually be able to run elections. Dealing with security issues will remain very, very crucial, and the economy and the lives of the people remain very important. Thank
you so much, gentlemen. Professor Ken Ife is a renowned development economist, a public policy analyst, served as the chief economic strategist in the ECOWAS Commission and co-chair of the EU-Africa Initiative. Thank you so much. He joined us virtually. And Happy New Year once again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Right here in the studio, Dr. Hussaini Abdul is a political scientist, a public intellectual, development specialist, and is a country director, Care International. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
And Dr. Joseph Akinlaja, a former member of Nigeria's House of Representatives and former labor activist. He served as the deputy president of the Nigerian Labour Congress for very many years. Thank you so much for your time.
And that dance of show Molly.
Oh, great.
Yes,
Thank you. Happy New Year once again.
Thank you.
And to you, our viewers out there, we want to thank you for investing your time with us, and we wish you a very happy and a prosperous 2026. Bye for now.